All right, let's dive into a story that's all about a massive global power shift. And believe it or not, it was all set in motion by a single tax. We're talking about a major showdown between India and the United States, a battle for the digital world. And it all boils down to one simple, but let's be honest, incredibly complex question.
Yeah, really think about that for a second. How do you tax a company that basically lives on the internet? Their value isn't in a brick-and-mortar store, right? It's in all those clicks, the data streams from millions, maybe even billions of users. So how does a country get its fair share? This is the central puzzle that is completely rewriting the rules of the global economy as we know it.
So to answer that very question, India decided to make a move. And I mean a really bold, pretty much unprecedented move. One that sent absolute shockwaves through the entire tech world.
Okay, so for years, here's what was happening. You had these massive global tech giants making billions and billions of dollars from the huge Indian market. But they weren't really paying taxes on those profits, at least not in the same way a local Indian company would. India looked at this and saw a massive imbalance. They decided, you know what? It's time to fix this.
So what was their solution? It's called the Digital Services Tax. And honestly, the concept is pretty straightforward. It basically says, hey, if you're a foreign digital company and you're making money off our citizens, you owe us tax in our country. Simple as that. But wow, what a direct challenge to the old school rules of international tax.
And in 2020, India put this whole idea into action. They introduced what they called a 2% equalization levy. Now, this tax applied to the money these foreign companies were making from their online services in India. And look, 2% might not sound like a lot, but believe me, it had absolutely massive implications.
And just so we're clear, this wasn't some obscure policy hitting a few small companies. No way. This hit the biggest names in the game. We're talking about Google, Amazon, Apple, Meta, the titans. All of a sudden, the cost of doing business in one of the planet's largest markets, it changed, like overnight.
Now, inside India, this was seen as way more than just a tax law. It was hailed as a masterstroke. And why? Because it was seen as this powerful declaration of economic independence, of digital sovereignty. But you know, when you make a move this bold, you're pretty much guaranteed to get a reaction.
And that reaction, well, it came from the United States. As the home of these tech titans, the US government saw India's tax as nothing short of a direct attack. And just like that, what started as a domestic policy in India blew up into a full-blown global dispute.
The official response was incredibly swift. The U.S. didn't mess around. They took the case straight to the World Trade Organization, the WTO. Their argument was that India's new tax was just not okay, that it violated international trade agreements.
So this set up two completely opposite arguments. On one side, you had India saying, look, this is a fair tax, and it's our sovereign right to set our own economic policy. But on the other side, the U.S. fired back, calling it an illegal, discriminatory tax that was specifically and unfairly targeting American companies. The stage was set. A huge ruling was on the horizon.
And let me tell you, the WTO's decision here was going to have consequences that went way beyond just the U.S. and India. This was going to create a ripple effect felt literally all around the world.
And then, in what was a truly landmark decision, the WTO sided with India. They ruled the tax was legally sound. Now, this wasn't just a win for India. It was a massive signal to the entire world that the old, established rules of global trade, they were now officially up for grabs.
India's victory basically opened the floodgates. Other nations were watching, and this emboldened them. Countries like France, Italy, Australia, they all saw a new path forward and started putting similar digital taxes in place. So India hadn't just changed its own laws, it had kicked off a global trend.
You see, this win was about so much more than just money. It was symbolic. It marked this huge shift in perception. India was using the power of its massive market to go from being a country that just follows the rules to one that actually makes the rules. But that begs the question, how? How was this even possible?
Well, the answer really lies in India's incredible economic and tech transformation over the last decade or so. The country wasn't just making some bold claim out of thin air, it now had the serious economic muscle to back it up.
I mean, just consider this for a second. India's own homegrown digital payment system, UPI, now handles half, that's 50% of all real-time digital payment transactions in the entire world. That is just staggering dominance in what is basically the future of finance.
And it's not just in the digital space. Thanks to big pushes like the Make in India initiative, the country is now the world's second largest smartphone manufacturer. The only country ahead of them?
China. That alone shows you just how much global supply chains are shifting.
So, when you put all these pieces together, the result is pretty clear. India is now the world's fourth largest economy. And it's this newfound economic power that gives it the leverage to stand its ground, even against pressure from other global giants.
So where does all of this lead the US-India relationship today? Well, it's created a whole new, much more complex dynamic. It's one that's defined by, some tension, but also by a shared and really ambitious future.
Because despite all these disagreements, the economic partnership is just too important for either country to walk away from. I mean, bilateral trade hit $191 billion in 2023, and get this, they have a shared, ambitious goal to more than double that to $500 billion by 2030.
And the conversation itself is actually evolving. Instead of just arguing over taxes, the focus is now shifting to the future. We're talking collaboration on digital devices, cybersecurity, AI, high-tech trade. It's all about finding that common ground in the industries that are going to define tomorrow.
But here's the key takeaway. While India is absolutely committed to that partnership, it's now negotiating from a totally different position, a position of strength. The message couldn't be clearer. Collaboration is welcome, for sure, but it will not come at the expense of India's own domestic interests or its economic sovereignty.
And all of this brings us right back to the central question of this new digital age. As economic power continues to shift and technology just keeps rewriting the playbook, who gets to write the rules? It's not so certain anymore who gets to hold the pen. What used to be a question decided by a handful of powerful nations is now a massive, ongoing global negotiation.